Well, we do health features on this program, and I think people find it very helpful. You know, we have been hearing, I'm going to trust my heart to Lipitor, and the thing we should do with Lipitor is lower cholesterol. Cholesterol is the enemy, it is the killer, and for decades we've looked at cholesterol as the #1 public health enemy. But now, new research, they're always bringing out new research that shows that high cholesterol is actually a good thing. So what's the deal? Health reporter Laurie Johnson is going to bring us the latest findings about fat.
20 years ago, doctors told us to stay away from high-fat foods like butter, cheese, bacon, and eggs because they raised cholesterol and could lead to heart disease. America responded and stopped eating fat. In its place, however, we ate more sugar and other carbohydrates. And how'd that work out? Not great. As a whole, Americans grew fatter and sicker than before. It looks like back then, scientists may have reached the wrong conclusion. A growing number of medical experts now say things like weight gain, heart disease, and other illnesses are not caused by cholesterol, but by something different called inflammation. That means instead of avoiding foods that raise our cholesterol, we need to avoid foods that cause inflammation. Dr. Beverly Teeter studies how different kinds of fat in food affect our health. She says scientists wrongly blamed cholesterol for heart disease when they saw high levels of it in damaged blood vessels. Teeter believes the body put the cholesterol there to fix the problem, which was actually caused by something else, inflammation.
It's the inflammation in the vessels that start the lesion. The body then sends the cholesterol like a scab to cover over it and protect the blood system and that vessel wall from further damage.
Research also shows cholesterol can protect against respiratory and gastrointestinal problems, helps create vitamin D, and people with high cholesterol tend to live longer.
I come from a family that my mother's side had naturally high cholesterol. Her cholesterol was between 380 and 420 when I started watching her medical records, and she died at 97. So I don't think that cholesterol was too bad for her.
It's also especially important in the brain, which contains more cholesterol than any other organ and needs cholesterol in order for brain cells to pass messages to each other. So when it comes to food choices, Dr. Teeter says don't worry if it raises your cholesterol. Focus your attention on reducing inflammation with omega-3s and natural saturated fats. Some fats, however, cause inflammation, so avoid too many omega-6s and trans fats. How do you tell the healthy omega-3s from the unhealthy omega-6 fats? Vegetable oils and mayonnaise contain high levels of omega-6s, so be careful how much you consume. As far as omega-3s, such as fish, olive oil, and walnuts, take an extra helping, or a daily fish oil supplement. At one time, dietitians considered margarine, a trans fat, heart healthy. We now know a better choice is butter. In the last 20 years, trans fats have become the ingredient of choice for almost all processed foods. You can tell something contains trans fat if you see the word hydrogenated in the list of ingredients. Natural saturated fats can also cut down on inflammation. Topping the list, coconut oil, which fights colds and the flu and has even reversed the symptoms of Alzheimer's, ALS, and Parkinson's disease in some people. Now that you know some of the good about fats, you should also remember those foods that make you fat and increase inflammation. On that list, it's hard to top sugar and other refined carbohydrates, wheat, corn, rice, and so on. So when it comes to your health, inflammation beats out cholesterol as the new enemy. Take it on by saying yes to foods like fish and coconut oil and no to sugar, other carbs, and trans fats.
Laurie's here with us. Laurie, brilliant piece. Hey, listen, how could the scientific community have been so wrong?
Well, it's because it's because cholesterol was at the scene of the crime, but it was not the perpetrator. It would be like if there are a bunch of house fires in a neighborhood, and you say, I wonder what's causing all those. Well, there are firemen all over the place so every time there's a house fire, so it must be the firemen. They're causing it, but no, it's actually something else.
But they also make so much money. Lipitor has been a multi-billion-dollar seller, billions and billions.
That's right, and now they see that for the most part, cholesterol is not the enemy. And what's happened is they've researched it and found out. First, they said all cholesterol was bad.
Yeah.
And then they looked at it a little bit more closely and said, hey, wait a second. Cholesterol, there are different types of cholesterol. HDL, which is actually good for you, and omega-3s raise HDL, but then there's the LDL, which is bad. So they said, okay, go ahead and eat the omega-3s, the fish oil and the olive oil, but stay away from the LDLs. Now they're finding out that there are different kinds of LDL cholesterol, and that some of the LDL cholesterol is good for you, and it's based on particle size, and the big fluffy particles of LDL cholesterol, like cotton balls, those are good for you, and those those come from eating saturated fat like coconut oil, butter, egg yolks, meat, and they're saying those are actually good for you. That type of cholesterol. Steak. Grass-fed is better than the kind that has all the antibiotics in it.
This is Atkins. Atkins used to be a regular on this show. He used to come down here to get free haircuts. And he did. Honestly. And
whatever it takes.
But I was intrigued by his diet revolution, but he was preaching just what you're saying.
Right. Now, there is one type of cholesterol that is bad for you, and it's a subtype of the LDL cholesterol. Remember how I was talking about how size and density matters? The small, dense LDL particles, they're like BBs. And those are caused by inflammation.
Yeah.
And the two main foods that cause inflammation are trans fats and sugars. And Pat, if people understood how vicious trans fats are, they wouldn't come within 10 feet of them. Because trans fats attack our body on the most fundamental level, on the cellular level. Because trans fats actually weaken the cell membrane so that things that shouldn't be getting into our cells, like viruses, are getting in, and things that shouldn't be getting out of our cells, like nutrients, are getting out.
Every Coke, Dr. Perricone, who did the Perricone, he went into this really strong. He was heavy on inflammation years ago. But the inflammation thing is something that you don't realize. You're talking about drinking Cokes, drinking Pepsis.
Right.
And the sugar that's there in sugared cereals, Super Pops and all this stuff, and cakes and pies and cookies.
There you go. Americans consume 156 pounds of sugar a year. 300 years ago, in the year 1700, people consumed 7.5 pounds of sugar a year. Our bodies are not made to process that much sugar, and it's like you were saying, the soda and all that. Half of the sugar we consume is in the form of high fructose corn syrup. So, and then another big sugar are the refined carbohydrates. The white bread, the white flour, those things are just like eating sugar to your body. Once you eat a piece of white bread, your body reads it just like as if you're eating table sugar. So all those sugars and the refined carbohydrates, the white foods, cause massive inflammation, and the trans fats too. And really, perhaps most concerning about the trans fats is how they affect your brain cells. Recently, they did a study in the University of Oregon and I did a story on this about 6 months ago. It's on our website, where people who ate a lot of trans fats had higher incidence of Alzheimer's disease, because with the weakened cell membranes, cells in your brain can't communicate with each other. And now they're seeing whether trans fats are maybe linked to ADD, attention deficit disorder, ADHD, and autism. autism. We've seen an explosion in the last 30 years of these diseases. At the same time, we've seen an explosion in the consumption of trans fats. They're so unnatural. They're made in a lab. They're foreign to our bodies.
It's like the American way to drink Cokes, to drink Pepsis, to eat white bread, to eat buns, to eat French fries cooked in trans fats, to eat all these things, and especially the high fructose corn syrup, which is in everything. We've got it in baby foods all the way up the line. So we've got this epidemic of obesity, and people are dying, and our health costs are going through the roof. Why don't you think the government does something about this?
Well, I think it's because of the lobbies. I mean, the high fructose corn syrup is driven by the corn lobby, and that's a very powerful lobby. Same thing with the trans fats. So we have to police ourselves. And the way I look at it is with entertainment. I mean, look at all the junk that's given to us on television and in movies, and we have to filter it ourselves.
Well, we have to police ourselves. The nanny state, when I was heavy about, this NutraSweet, which is deadly. It's like, it's like white lightning, corn liquor or whatever. And Donald Rumsfeld, when he was head of one of these companies, he got paid a big sum to lobby to make sure that the results of the tests having to do with NutraSweet they were quieted down or ignored or whatever, and so the FDA approved these things. They're deadly. So
they are deadly.
Yeah.
They are deadly, and we have a lot of information on our website about this, some wonderful reading materials, but the bottom line is, you're right, this inflammation is called the silent killer because you can't see it and you can't feel it. But the things that cause inflammation are trans fats, sugars and refined carbohydrates, and omega-6 oils. But it's okay to go ahead and eat plenty of omega-3s and your natural saturated fats. And a good way to remember which is which is, did God make it? Did God make omega-3? The fish oil and the coconut oil, but these trans fats are made in a lab. Same with the high fructose corn syrup, and like you were saying, the NutraSweet, and even the refined carbohydrates, all those white flours and all those white things, those were made in a lab. They took the regular grain and stripped it of the fiber, and that's it. And inside of our bodies, it causes a huge gush of insulin, which is not good for you.
I'm glad.
I am passionate about it.
I want you to know that your friend here every morning has a big tablespoon, and he pours fish oil into a tablespoon and takes 2 of them, Norwegian processed super omega-3 every morning.
Fantastic. That's why you're such a fathead.
That's why
because the brain is 70% fat, and one of the best things you can do for your brain,
fish oil.
One of the best things you can do for your brain is take fish oil and make sure that in the fish oil you've got about 750 milligrams of the DHA.
I have
That's the superfood.
4,000 a day when I take it. But in any event, if you want to have a brain like a fish, eat fish oil. Lori, you're terrific. Thank you very much. Disease is America's #1 killer. But what causes it? Well, first doctors said it's cholesterol. And then we heard that only bad cholesterol was the problem. And now some leading cardiologists are changing their diagnosis again. Our Laurie Johnson has that story.
In the fight for better health, Americans view cholesterol as public enemy #1. Doctors tell us to stay away from food high in saturated fat like butter, eggs, and meat because it's responsible for heart disease. But what if that's wrong?
Cholesterol is found at the scene of the crime for heart disease, but it's not the perpetrator.
Cardiologist Stephen Sinatra and a growing number of physicians believe cholesterol does not cause heart disease. They point the finger at inflammation, which can be caused by eating too much sugar. Sinatra admits a small fraction of cholesterol is bad because it's inflammatory, but for the most part, it's good for you.
Cholesterol many times can be a gift in disguise, a higher cholesterol.
In his new book, The Great Cholesterol Myth, Sinatra explains that since half of all patients hospitalized for heart disease have high cholesterol, that means the other half have low cholesterol.
I was doing angiograms on people with cholesterols of 150, and they had far advanced heart disease. And the converse, I would do an angiogram on somebody with cholesterols of 280, and they had no heart disease.
Since high cholesterol gets the blame from most doctors, they prescribe cholesterol-lowering statin drugs to their patients with it. But Sinatra says only a small percentage actually need the drug. He only prescribes statins to middle-aged men with coronary heart disease, like Albert Tays.
Other than getting older, I'm not feeling any worse for wear.
Sinatra says a small percentage of women can also benefit from statins as an anti-inflammatory, not to lower cholesterol. But he says for many statin users, the risks outweigh the gains.
The side effects of statins are grossly underreported. I mean, grossly underreported.
Muscle pain and fatigue are two key complaints.
Doc, I can't get out of a chair anymore. I have weakness in my thighs. I can't play doubles tennis. I walk the dog and I'm vitally exhausted. These are statin side effects. However, a lot of the doctors or the patients think they're getting older. They're not getting older. These are statin side effects.
Patients over 70 are especially vulnerable.
They can't remember names. They can't remember where they put their glasses or keys. They forget sometimes who they are. If you do take a statin, it can actually bring on the onset of Alzheimer's disease by 15 years. So you got to be cautious with statins.
So while statins may or may not be right for you, one thing is certain: reducing inflammation is good for your heart no matter who you are.
The best way to do that is cut back on sugar.
You know, cholesterol is sort of your friend. Sugar is your foe. It's the villain. It's your enemy.
Sugar damages arteries, increases blood pressure, and ages your organs. And we're not just talking about soda and candy, but also food that turns into sugar as soon as you eat it. Refined carbohydrates like white bread, white pasta, and white rice. 68-year-old Joan Jackson is living proof that a low-sugar diet improves your heart. At one point, she needed a heart transplant, but after changing her diet and lifestyle, Joan was taken off the transplant list.
I feel great. I'm not going to say I'm 16, but I feel great at my age. I feel I can do anything and accomplish anything I want to.
Her secret? Good old-fashioned self-control.
We have a tendency of saying, oh, I want that last piece of pie, or I'm going to have this piece of candy. But sometimes you have to say no.
Dr. Sinatra describes his healthiest patients as those who avoid sugar and refined carbohydrates and, get this, fill up on fats. He highly recommends unsaturated fats like nuts, avocados, fish, and olive oil. He even touts saturated fats like unprocessed meat and coconut oil.
Coconut oil is a saturated fat. Because it's a saturated fat, it's less prone to oxidation. So it really protects you.
But stay away from trans fat, which is man-made and added to most packaged foods.
I call trans fats unguided missiles that really cause enormous inflammation of blood vessels.
Remember to pay close attention to the ingredients in your food. The word hydrogenated is your red flag because that means trans fat. So while doctors may disagree about whether cholesterol causes heart disease, one thing is certain: if you go easy on sugar and trans fats, you're headed in the right direction.
Wonderful piece, Lori. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, 2 things I'd recommend to you. Get off of statins. I mean, I'm telling you, these things. Somebody tried to get me to take Crestor, and I said, not a chance. Lori's with us here. Lori, that was a great piece. It was very interesting, but we intrigued. It's amazing these statins are deadly.
And you know, Dr. Sinatra, who, by the way, is related to Frank Sinatra.
Is he really? I was
really
wondering how many people with that name.
Don't you love that? You can tell he's from New York because he's got that great New York accent, and he's just so out there. He's so brazen. But anyway, he compares prescribing statins to bloodletting from 200 years ago because, you know, all the doctors, you know, the diseases were real, and all the doctors thought that was the treatment, but slowly but surely they all realized that was the wrong treatment.
You know, those ads, that guy, you know, I'm going to do this, but I'll trust my heart to Lipitor. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I heard a doctor that said that it was the greatest thing that ever been conceived of, and they all just put their, willy-nilly, all their patients. But to think of the side effects, I mean, erectile dysfunction is not fun for men to have.
That is no laughing matter.
No way.
it's no fun for the women either.
Okay.
But anyway, you know, just guess how many dollars worth of statins are sold every year by the pharmaceutical companies.
10 billion?
Keep going.
Come on.
Keep going.
20?
Keep going.
30?
There you go.
$30 billion
Billion with a B.
Of these health killers? Something they gave me the wrong kind. But
That's me. I gave that to you.
Oh, well, I like ubiquinol, which is a little bit better CoQ10, ubiquinol. But in any event, CoQ10, because statins will take away CoQ10, which your heart needs to be healthy.
Right. I want to make sure that our viewers get a good look at this because CoQ10 is so wonderful. Our bodies make it naturally, and yeah, there you go. Our bodies make it naturally, and it's a vitamin-like substance that's wonderful. But as you said, statins reduce that. So if you're on a statin, you must take CoQ10. I know you disagree, but
no, I agree with CoQ10. I just take a better type. I take ubiquinol, which is a advanced form of CoQ10.
Okay, great. Then 200 milligrams of the CoQ10. If you're on a statin, for sure take it 100 milligrams in the morning, 100 milligrams at night. But even those of us who are over 40 need to take CoQ10. I know it's shocking. I'm over 40.
Oh, I can't believe I thought you were 25.
Close your mouth. But anyway, those of us over 40 need to at least take 50 milligrams of the CoQ10 every day because our body reduces its production of CoQ10 as we age. But, you know, aside from the cholesterol and the statin issue, which is controversial, the inflammation issue is not controversial.
Yes.
And this is something that I really feel that people are not getting the message. Inflammation is a killer. It's not just tied to heart disease, but also cancer, diabetes, autoimmune diseases. And, you know, we can reduce inflammation by cutting back on the amount of sugar we eat. Most Americans eat. Here we go, another pop quiz. How much sugar, how many pounds of sugar does the average American eat a year?
25 pounds.
You're way off. Keep
200
going.
pounds.
Not quite that much.
150 pounds.
156 on
156
average.
pounds.
156. 200 years ago, the average American ate 20 pounds of sugar. So folks, when you're at the grocery store, don't believe the stuff that you read on the front of the package where it says low sugar and trans fat free. A lot of that is actually misleading. What you want to do is you want to go straight for the list of ingredients and look for sugar, but there are other things that are sugars that are not called sugar, like, what's the big one? We've talked about it before.
Oh, go ahead. I know what you're thinking about. What?
High fructose corn syrup.
Oh, yeah. That's
Don't you love how I put you on the spot? Don't you know you do this to Terry and Christy?
That's my bête noire, if I can use that term.
So look for the high fructose corn syrup. Don't buy it. And with trans fats, don't buy food with trans fats in them. And what's the big watchword for trans fats?
I was blasting high fructose corn fat, and you talked to some people who said, well, they're the sugar. But I mean, Dr. Sinatra isn't too keen on that, was he?
Whether it's sugar or whether it's high fructose corn syrup, whether it's concentrated fruit juice, whether it's maltose, dextrose, fructose, glucose, all those things are sugar. Okay. And if they're in the list of the ingredients, don't buy it. And then don't buy it if it has a trans fat. What's the key word for trans fat?
hydrogenated.
Yay! You get a
All
gold
right,
star. And the reason it's hydrogenated, a good way to remember hydrogenated is that's an oil that has been infused with hydrogen. It is one molecule different from plastic. So I know God does not intend for us to eat plastic. We shouldn't be eating hydrogenated oils, trans fats.
I used to push sweet and low pretty much, and now they say that's a chemical that doesn't do you any good. So I'm into stevia. Stevia seems to be the natural sweetener that's so far that it. Don't tell me there's something that you found about stevia.
Don't get me started. Pete's giving me the rap signal.
Yeah, I got a rap.
But the bottom line is we don't need sugar. We definitely don't need trans fats. So cut back no matter what kind.
And what it is, make my soup. And that has none of this bad stuff
You know
in
what I
it.
love about your soup?
What's
it
that?
takes a long time to eat.
Yes.
So that aids in weight loss because you can't gobble up soup like you can something else. And also, it's cheap.
Yes, yes, but delicious.